In the US, having used heroin at any one time, the overall percentage is 2.2% and remains stable through the high school years. However, in New York State, in the 9th grade, it is 1 1/3 times higher than the national 9th grade rate. And in New York State, in the 12th grade, it is almost 3 times higher than the national rate. So, back to our counties. Many adolescents sell, carry, or are under the influence of illicit drugs, but are lucky not to be stopped by the authorities. But for those that are stopped, the rate per 10,000 arrests for young adults ages 16 to 21 years intervened by the authorities for illicit drug-related issues in 2013 was 1.3 in Westchester County, 1.1 in Rockland County, and 0.9 in Dutchess County. Again, we go to academics. Illicit effects of drugs on grades is demonstrated by this chart, where the greater the percentage of students engaged in particular behavior, there is a decrease in academic performance. So the effect of alcohol and illicit drugs may have an effect on education, as may be interpreted by looking not only at the grades, but at the dropout rate, where in Westchester County, 641 students dropped out of high school in 2013. In Rockland County, 237 students dropped out. And in Dutchess County, 384 students dropped out. In a study by Ferguson and Bowden, this chart describes the social outcome of marijuana users. As you can see, the green demonstrates welfare dependency by the age of 21 to 25. The red, unemployment at the same age. And in terms of going to college and earning a bachelor's degree, you can see that it's practically 1% or perhaps even lower. Finally, 22.1% of 9th and 12th grade U.S. students were offered, sold, or given an illegal drug during the 12 months before the survey within school grounds. So all this has implications that affect all of us, not only as professionals, but as members of our community. Statistics are real. They give a picture of what is going on. And in that respect, we must take these statistics seriously. And we must carry on with the programs that we're involved with. We must advocate with people that deal with policy making so that more funds are made available so that programs that confront these statistics can be continued, can be improved, and can actually have a continuing trend in actually lowering these statistics that I think are very impressive, and that something has to be done in order to improve them. And with that respect, the reason why I say this is because of the implications of these statistics. Alcohol and illicit drugs may affect academic performance, resulting in a diminishing interest of the students to stay in school. You think about it, and that affects our community. It affects the future of our youth. Dropouts have a far higher unemployment rate than high school graduates. But of most importance, I think, is how it affects our community. So the social, economic, and personal costs include foregoing tax revenues. The government loses. Decreased productivity. Industry loses. Increased demand for and reliance on social services. That affects our pocket as taxpayers. Increased probability of criminal activity. What if I'm the one or you're the one that gets hit on the head so that the person can get $5, $15, $20 from your pocket so they can go out and get whatever it is that they need to get? Reduce political participation. We live in a democracy. We want everyone to participate. We want everyone to be involved. We want everyone to vote. And as you know, one of the things that you lose once you are confined is the right to vote. And finally, poor health. We all know how much it costs to provide health to everyone. So that if we have our youth that are beginning the process of pathology at an early age, where perhaps at that age you don't see anything in terms of pathology that is evident, but as time goes by, it does become evident, as Dr. Foley and Dr. Pfeiffer mentioned before. So it is important to take into account the fact that we must do something now to prevent something in the future, because in terms of health, it just costs a lot of money. And the whole purpose of the Health Reform Act is, one, to try to control costs. We know that the costs are going to continue to increase. However, the idea is, how do you contain it in such a way that is reasonable in terms of how it goes up? And one way is prevention. One way is to work with our kids in such a way that they can make the proper choices, because this is all about choice. So that if we take these statistics that we have been presented here and we try to analyze them and realize how important it is to do something to bring these statistics down, because all these implications are affected. I would argue then that it behooves us to get involved, not only within our program, but get involved with policymakers so that the proper decisions can be made in the future to continue to fund programs that actually help to bring down these statistics. But the key, as I see it, is basically to teach adolescents to make proper choices. Thank you.
Our third presenter is Dr. Knott. His presentation is entitled "A New Phenomenon: High-Risk Students Graduating High School."
Good morning. Good morning. My name is JavisKnott. We conducted a study, and we are entitling this. We titled this study "A New Phenomenon: High-Risk Students who's graduating high school." I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Bennett and Dr. Palmer. They assisted me in this study. A new phenomenon. According to the National Dropout Prevention Center, high-risk students are students at risk of dropping out of high school according to factors that increase their likelihood of dropping out of high school. What that basically means is students are considered to be high risk. They are born into a situation. The research also said that 50% of all the students who are labeled at high-risk students, they drop out of high school at a percent 2 to 1 compared to people who are not. According to how many factors that they are under, that can increase to a 3 to 1 ratio. Therefore, the aim of this study is to provide a voice relative to what influenced students who were labeled high risk or academically disadvantaged while in high school to graduate high school. This study also wanted to gain personal insights on what the influences and challenges of graduating high school was. What we wanted to do, because all of the literature out there basically was quantitative studies. That basically meant the students was given a survey and they tried to identify, according to the survey, what they felt related mostly to them. However, we wanted to give a voice to the students to allow them to tell us openly what they thought would be, according to their experiences, the influences and the challenges to graduate high school. Therefore, we performed a qualitative study. According to the National Dropout Prevention Center, students are labeled at risk if they fall into one of the following categories. Therefore, the students in this study either fell into one or more of the following categories. One was from families in the lowest socioeconomic quartile. What that basically meant was if a student was from a low socioeconomic status home, they were at high risk of dropping out of high school. From a single parent home, the research said that the reason why this was a problem is because, for the most part, either the parent was not at home but they were trying to work to provide for the kids, or it also put them in a low socioeconomic status because they're single parents. Earned grades of C or lower from 6th to the 8th grade. What that meant was those high-risk students felt, regardless of how hard they worked in their class, they still only got a C. They may as well drop out. Held back a grade. What basically happened at this stage, students started to realize that they're the oldest person in the room. So therefore they just drop out. Change schools 2 or more times outside of a normal progression basically meant these kids, parents sometimes could not afford to pay rent where they were staying, so they always moved to different locations. That made the kid having to try to adjust to a new environment each time, which can be kind of uncomfortable for the kids. And then they can be signaled out because some of these kids have behavioral problems also. And finally, have an older sibling who dropped out of high school. The research said that these students, when they had peers who dropped out of high school, their peers was partying all the time, hanging out, doing all types of activities. And therefore, status quo just kind of was the same thing. They just wanted to end up doing what their siblings were doing. So that had a major influence in them dropping out of high school also. For this particular study, what we wanted to do was find kids who had graduated high school but also were labeled as high risk. It was hard to find a population of kids that fit this because once we started communicating with all the different at-risk programs, they never kept up with the kids who graduated high school. What we decided to do, we did a national search on the National Dropout Prevention Center, and they identified communities in school as one of the leading high school dropout programs in the United States. Therefore, what we did, we went and pulled up all the different sites and started to contact the executive directors of these centers. As we contacted directors, executive directors, for the most part, we were still having problems because most of them did not keep up with their students. Finally, we was fortunate to find communities in schools, which was located in Augusta, Georgia. The executive director there did say that they kept in contact with their students, and she was willing to contact them and see if they were willing to participate in the study. So next, the former participants were contacted via telephone by the executive director of the Dropout Prevention Program to inform them of the study and to ask if they would be willing to participate. Only the contact information of the students who were willing to participate in the study was forwarded to us, the researchers. So she spoke with them, and only the ones who was interested in this study, of course, she gave us their information. Once the contact information was received, each student was sent a letter of introduction along with the consent form via email. Basically, we wanted to tell them what the study was about, and I also wanted to let them know that there will be some safeguards to protect their identity and all. And once they received that, the letter of introduction also provided an overview of the study and confirmed their willingness to be interviewed for this study. A week later, after we sent this letter, the participants were contacted, and we actually set up a face-to-face interview with them. Once we scheduled the interview, we set the interview to be at Community and School Center in Augusta, Georgia. We went and met with each one of the participants, and we asked them all the same questions. Once we gathered that information, we recorded and transcribed it and started to put together different themes to kind of see what arise as far as the similarities that all the high-risk students would consider to be risks and challenges. The participants in this study were 12 students who participated in the dropout prevention program while in high school, and subsequently they enrolled in the post-secondary institution. They were made up of there were 6 participants, which were African-American males, 5 were African-American females, and 1 Caucasian female. The participants in this study were between the ages of 18 and 22 years old. Participants represented each classification from freshman to senior, with 4 freshmen, 5 sophomores, 2 juniors, and 1 senior volunteering for this study. The influences to graduate high school, this is what we found based on their answers. The positive influences on students to graduate high school, which were parental influence, talking about the importance of education, that's what they said. Most of the students felt like their parents kept staying on them by saying, please get your education, please get your education. We do not want to see you in the same situation as we are. We know how important education is. These students felt like having this conversation with their parents influenced them to finish high school. College aspirations. Basically the same thing. They felt like going to college was a way for them to succeed in life, because what they saw in their environment was not something that they felt like was a positive influence. Of course, communities and schools was always being positive in providing guidance. The people who worked at communities and schools were mostly college graduates. So they sort of predisposed these kids to college, like being there to tell them about the fun and different things they could do in college. They even took some of them to participate in their career days at college. And they had people that was from their community at the college to actually speak with them. So they can see someone from their community and say, well, wow, it can be us. Peer engagement, having positive people you can talk to. They felt that the people they hung with in school all kept each other and held them accountable for doing the schoolwork and to make sure they graduated. And if one of them was trying to get out of line, they said they all got together, had a meeting or something, and kind of tighten them up. They all wanted their peers to kind of succeed, to matriculate together. Extracurricular involvement keeps students out of trouble. They felt like longer they had something to do as far as participating in sports, the band, and different things, music and different things like that. Those activities, curricular activities that they participated in kept them from being on the streets, having so much idle free times. And they also felt like there was a criteria that they had to meet in order to participate in those different activities. So that they felt like that kept them straight. And the final thing, most of them said teacher and band director as role models. It's amazing because a lot of times, if you do come from a single parent home, these kids felt like if a teacher gave them some attention and kind of cared for them, that made a big difference in their life. Sometimes teachers, educators can kind of get a kid and just kind of talk to them, encourage them simply by asking them how they're doing each day. These kids felt like that took them a long way. Look at the teacher, the way the teacher dressed, the way the teachers encouraged them, regardless of the situation at home. They felt like it was a light at the end of the tunnel. But there were some challenges to graduate high school also. And the challenges that emerged from these participants in trying to graduate high school were as we've been talking about throughout this whole day, peer pressure. There was such high risk pregnancy in Augusta, Georgia, like it is throughout the United States. Drug use. There was so much drug use, everybody was doing it, so therefore the pressure these kids felt it was pressure to not do drugs. Isn't that amazing? And gang activities, I mean, they had to try to figure out ways to not have to participate in gang, and they would get threatened sometimes because they wouldn't. And the clothes you wear. Some of these kids came from so poor socioeconomic status. Of course, sometimes they had to wear the same clothing all the time. Which we'll talk about policies later, which some of the policies they felt could be implemented in school uniforms. So it might be dressed alike. Time management was another thing. Not enough time to deal with all the activities in the schools. There's a definition called social capital. Basically mean that people from certain class and socializations pass things down to their kids. So for the most part, middle class people they were educated, they know how to study, they know how to go about getting into things and navigate the educational system. Well, these kids come from a different type of status. So therefore, time management and learning how to deal with studying, participating in extracurricular activities and things of such was found to be difficult for these kids. So therefore, that was a challenge to them, to deal with all the different things in life and still be successful in school. And of course, the academic courses themselves, not strong in certain subjects. A lot of times, one course is a prerequisite to another course as you matriculate through school. And if you do not excel in the course prior to that course, of course, you'll struggle throughout. So they were finding it hard to deal with the different courses while they were trying to matriculate and graduate from high school. So those are all the different challenges that emerged from this study. In conclusion, findings of the study were consistent with previous research, which suggested that parental extracurricular and peer engagement was influential in students enrolling in college and also graduating high school. The study also found that high school dropout programs can influence at-risk students, high-risk students, and at-risk students to graduate high school also. And that's because of all the different experiences and having somewhere they can go and be around somebody who can be a positive role model. Allow them to teach them how to use the basic computer, set up PowerPoint presentation, how to dress, and how to deal with different types of issues they would have at school. The study also provided evidence that more at-risk students do want to graduate high school and attend college, but they simply do not know how to go about doing it. So simply not being predisposed or educated on going to college. And everybody knows in order to go to college, you have to graduate high school. So therefore, these kids, in their mind, they said they would like to go to graduate high school and go to college. However, they just didn't know how to go about doing it. The implications for this study? Findings of this study could also be useful for secondary or post-secondary administrators to provide support for at-risk students. Basically, we can come up with different policies, both at the high school level and the college level, that could assist these students in not just navigating through high school, but transitioning into college. Other implications for policy and practice include cultivating a high school culture that establishes expectations for students to graduate high school and attend college by guidance counselors, the administration, staff, and teachers. Because I think somebody said earlier that some of the positive influences on students was the high school, the teachers, the administrators and all. So therefore we can help the culture towards a kid can say, not only do I want to graduate high school, they can say, I'm going to graduate high school and go to college. We can all form a school like that lean on me for hey, we could be like that and have a positive influence on all these kids. Every time they hit the door, we have a wonderful sign up there that says, we are somebody. We're going to graduate. And as soon as they hit that door in that culture, they can just transcend. If they hit that door and all these activities and negativity, the teacher's like, man, I got to come to work today and deal with these bad kids. It can have a negative effect on them. Finally, seminars sponsored by high school in partnership with local institutions of higher education could be provided to assist parents and students on how to complete college and financial aid applications. Do you guys know that kids that one of the reasons why they won't even apply to college is because they don't even know how to do the application? And it's even harder now because it's not a paper application no more. To go online, a lot of those folks, like, they know technology, however, they don't understand what it means to go online and fill out a college application. When you start talking about financial aid, that's a whole nother presentation. However, the schools can do better by partnering with the higher education systems in their communities, and they can really offer these different seminars to the students, and the counselors, and the kids, and their parents. And everybody can be educated, and the transition can be much better. And the students can start thinking, I can go to college now. So they may do better in high school. That's it.
Thank you very much for our three presenters. And now, if you have a question, please raise your hand, and I will call on your name at one time. So then we ask that you first state your name, title, and organization prior to asking your question.
My question is for Dr. Rodriguez. Arlene Pfeiffer is I'm a health teacher at Beacon High School, which is in Dutchess County. I noticed with your charts and the statistics, my students have done the surveys, which the information is based on. Specifically the one with alcohol, with young teens driving and intoxicated. Do you know if the economic or social area was taken in on that? I know Dutchess, there's a lot of students that need to drive where they're going because there's less public transportation. Are numbers for that higher because they're not doing public transportation or other things like that where those kids are not being picked up?
The statistics that we got were basically from the entire county. Perhaps if we were to look into the zip codes, and we might be able to come up with more statistics, but basically the idea was to present an impact of what the problem is, so that we can all get involved, on board to try to do something about it in terms of actually bringing them down. But specifically in answering your question, the information that we got was basically for the entire county. It didn't specify.
Yes, audience.
Ed Fernandez, Breath of Life Counseling in New Jersey. Also for Dr. Rodriguez. I have two questions. One, in that same slide, in those three counties, I was wondering, are there programs in place for those people that do get caught?
That's a good question that can actually be asked of the chief executive that will be addressing us this afternoon. I don't specifically know the specifics of your question in terms of whether they have actual programs. Perhaps.
I know in Dutchess County, the high schools are all united, along with the district attorney and the EMS, where before students are allowed to park on school property, they have to attend an hour course with their parents. I actually run it with SAD, and go through education and statistics. We also have parents there who have lost children in accidents that are addressing the parents and the families. But before they can park on school property, they have to attend with the parent this program as part of education for driving.
You mentioned that you have a second question.
Yeah, the other question, I think the third presenter mentioned it, but I'm not sure. In your slide on adolescent high school dropout numbers, Is there data on it being a direct result of substance use?
Well, basically, for my study, the data we used for the National Dropout Prevention Center was just basically talked about people who are labeled high risk altogether, regardless of what their particular factor was. Substance abuse was one of them in regards to it, but it did not say like substance abuse had this many particular people to drop out of high school.
Okay, so we got another question.
I'm Marian Silke. I'm a health educator at FDR High School, which is also in Dutchess County. And addressing Dr. Knott, I love that your study focused on the protective factors, because there has been a lot of work done on the dropout rate and the factors that affect dropout rate in the negative. So I think that this is a great way to address the issue toward the positive. And I was just wondering, in your review of literature, did you come across many similar studies taking that point of view? And is there a need for a study like that to be replicated, perhaps in like a critical ethnography in the Northeast, since your study was down south?
Well, what we did find with the review of literature that I thought was interesting was a lot of the studies were more quantitative studies, and they really it was not similar to ours as far as what these kids thought we could do as far as the challenges, how to improve it or whatever. It was just more so trying to, like I said, identify more so what the problem was with these kids. That's why we chose to go ahead and try to do it. Okay, just use these kids to come and tell us what can we do to help these kids through their voices. So we can come up with systems, like you said, to navigate and solve this problem so they can have an easier transition through all of this process. In regards to further studies, this was a small study because it just only used a small sample size of people we could find there. However, I would like to, team up and try to do a large